on the road again. I'm getting stoned again.
I met Kyle Turley in 2004 when I interviewed him for the first time. So when I read Mike Silver's article and learned that Kyle was suffering, I wanted to know why.
And this pain is real. And this pain is real.
Were you diagnosed with something specifically?
Well, according to these, certain doctors, I have that CTE deal, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a new disease they've uncovered based around chronic head injuries. And I have those protein deficiencies in my brain that they say have created these things that are going on. And, the scary parts about it is that it can lead to other really bad things, onsets of dementia and, Alzheimer's disease and things like that, Not really looking forward to that.
It's a reality that sooner or later, then later, I guess I should say, I might be needing to take care of him. And it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah. I need to find something to be good at and get successful at now. Everybody just expects me to be this football player trying to be a musician. And the reality is that I was a musician trying to be a football player. So I decided, well, let me go try to make a run at it, and see what happens. And then it just kind of progressed really fast. Once I got into it and then started becoming more committed to it, everything I've done like that, it's just been a real fast progression. Having all of the things that I've had happen to me injury-wise and health-wise over the past few years has really given me a desire to succeed fast. When my insurance runs out, then I'm just at the mercy of the system, basically. And hopefully I won't have to be John Mackey, or any of these guys that are sitting in these care facilities, basically just waiting to die.
He wasn't a rebel. He was a catalyst, the personification of Dr. King's dream, the great John Mackey of the Baltimore Colts, the next enshrinee of the 1992 class.
John was a friend of mine and a very powerful, intelligent individual, and he did a lot for football as a player and also as a leader.
Mackey was a terrific player, a Hall of Fame caliber player, and then became, to some people, synonymous with this issue because he became a victim of the battering that he took.
I'd like to thank the National Football League Players Association for electing me president in 1970 and having enough faith and backing me all the way. I love them for that.
John was a leader. He was the player rep for the Baltimore Colts. And people listened to him. He had influence. John Mackey, look at me. John Mackey, sit up a minute. Depending upon where I'm sitting, he will respond, usually.
Is that part of the reason why you call him John Mackey? Because it's easier for him to recognize?
I don't want him to forget.
She had asked me if I wanted to go out on a date, and I told her yes, but I didn't mean it, because I was just saying yes to get rid of her.
He was going to stand me up.
Is John a sensitive man?
I heard I love you more times, well, in the first 2 years that he had been diagnosed with dementia than I did in the whole entire 40 before that.
How close did you ever come to saying, you know what, I really don't think this is going to work for me anymore?
I never thought that. I began to think, I have to handle this.
When John was diagnosed with dementia, Sylvia became the activist in the family. She lobbied then-Commissioner Paul Tagliabue to do right by these men and their families.
Many of their wives are truly heroic. Sylvia Mackey, at or near the top of that list, have made this issue their life's work.
The 88 plan was created to offer a better post-retirement life for the men who left it all out on the field.
He should have never had to suffer the kind of life that he finally had.
Was there a sense of empathy and a deeper layered love, too,
yes,
that came along with it?
It's like, okay, all those things I'd been angry about before, frustrated with, There's a physically mental reason because there's something wrong with the brain, the left side of his brain that controls judgment, knowing your audience and behavior, and also memory. This part of the brain has, as the report said, severe shrinkage. So those things that control that kind of behavior were gone.
If I showed you this under the microscope, you'd be shocked. First of all, you can see there's just incredibly extensive disease.
If it were normal, it would be
Blank. It would be
It would just be
clear.
white. It's just clearly obvious. There's no speculation.
There is no longer any doubt about this. There is no doubt.
It's like Russian roulette in a sense.
It's also like smoking. As soon as the Surgeon General's report came out, it was obvious what we always knew. We called them coffin nails.
We know that the science is all pointing to the fact that it's total brain trauma, not just concussions, that leads to the worst of the worst, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, that triad of depression, dementia, and loss of impulse control emotionally.
Well, what we know is that people on the line, they get, in the course of a single season, something like 900 or 1,000, what they call subconcussive hits that are about 10 Gs or more, but don't rise to the level of concussion. Some people can withstand that amount of head injury and not develop problems, and other people are more susceptible.
To the extent individuals play sports with a high level of even subconcussive brain trauma, it may contribute in susceptible individuals to them developing that later in life.
They got one of those meds right now, man, Depakote. It's bad.
You know, I talked about Cantu from BU. I mean, what I need to know is, does every player get this? Well, we know that's not true, because if you read the media and you read the paper, the scientific papers, you realize there are only a handful of cases that have been reported.
The science is not there to date to prove that it's cause and effect. Anecdotal information that's not randomly generated is not true science. We have to make our decisions on true science ultimately.
So little is known about concussions relative to what I think they're in the process of starting to find out. And, you know, that news that Chris Henry had some CTE going on when he died, that is chilling to me, that a wide receiver who didn't, you know, have a lot of memorable collisions. I mean, that's what's so truly scary.
If you played 20 years of football in the previous era, your chances of CTE are really high, uncomfortably high. Right now, it's virtually guaranteed.
So what's the real story? The story is there are a lot of stories and little consensus on something that is vital information. This is me toughening Alex up when he was just 5 years old.
Ow. Give it so you don't crack.
Huh?
Give it so you don't crack my skull.
Okay, I'll try not to crack your skull.
Like most uninformed parents, I clearly had no true understanding of the effects of head trauma.
The youngest individual that we're aware of with CTE changes in their brain is a 17-year-old, and another is 18 years old, and then another is 21. So we know that in some people, the earliest abnormal deposition of this tau protein, this hyperphosphorylated form of tau, can be there in the teens.